اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد معجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وقضى لها كل شيء وظل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وعدم عظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء بوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء باسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي عدا له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحتك العصام اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلحمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضعا متذللا خاشعا أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضعا قانع وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا اللهم وأسألك سؤال من يشتدت فاقته وعنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعزم فيما عندك رغبته اللهم عزم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وزهر عمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقضائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عمل القبيب الحسن مبدلا غيرك لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي وتجرعت بجحلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك ليمنك علي اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترت وكم من فاضح من البلاء يقلت وكم من إصار وقيت وكم من مكروه دفعت وكم من سناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرت اللهم عزم بلائي وعفرت بسوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وهبسني عن نفعي بعد أعمالي وخدتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومثالي. يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفعني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته بخلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكسرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رعوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور يتوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك عسى له كشف ضري والنزل في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت في هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تغير عدوي، فغرني بما أحوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، وتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحجة علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاءك، والزمني حكمك وبلاءك. وقد آتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أوجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري. غير قبول عذري وإدخالك إياي في ساعة من رحمتك. اللهم فأقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد وساقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، ورقة جلدي ودقة عزمي. يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك وصالفي برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أطرق معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد ما أنتم عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولحج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقدوا أميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي بدعائي خاضئا لربوبيتك. هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيت، أو توعد من أدنيت، أو تشرد من عويت، أو تسلم إلا البلاء من كفيت ورحمت. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، وتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى الألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة وبشكرك ماضها، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر هوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارها سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طاعة وعشارة واستغفارك مذعنة. نهاقد الذنوبك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب، يا كريم يا رب، يا كريم يا رب. وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليلا من البلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء مقرون قليلا مقسون يسير مقاه قصيرا مدته. فكيف احتمال البلاء الآخرة جليل وقوع المقاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ويخفف عن أهله، لأنه ليكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك. وهذا ما تقول السماوات والأرض يا سيدي، فكيف بي أنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستقيم. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، على أي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولم من حال الجواب إلى العليم العذاب والشدة، أم لطول البلاء مدتي، ولئن سيرتني العقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بين أهل بلائك وفرقت بين وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي، صبرت على عذابك، فكيف أصبر على فراقك؟ وهبني صبرت على حر نارك، فكيف أصبر على النزل إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي يفوق؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا، لئن تركتني ناطقا لأزجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج العاملين، ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولا أبكين إليك بقاء الفاقدين، ولو نادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غايات أعمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين وإله العالمين، فتراك سبحانك يا إلهي بحمدك، تسمع في صوت أبدا مسلما سجن في بمخالفتي، وذاقت عام عذابها بمعصيتي، وحبس بين أدباقها بجرمه وجريرتي، وهو يضج إليك ضجيجا معملا رحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك، يا مولاي، فكيف يبقي في العذاب وهو يرجو مثلث من حلمك؟ أم كيف تعلمه النار وهو يعمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرق لحيبها وأنت تسمع صوتها وترى مكانها؟ أم كيف يشتمل إليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفها؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقها؟ أم كيف تسجن زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في إتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبع لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين أقطع لو لم حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها وبردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماءك وأقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين، أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأن تجل سناؤك وقلت مبتدأ وتطولت بالعنام متكرما، أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستعون. إلهي وسيدي، وأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها، بالقضية التي هتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تحب لي في هذا الليل في هذا الساعة كل جرم أجرمته، وكل ذنب أذنبت، وكل قبيح أسررت، وكل جهل عملته قدمته أعلنت، أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني، وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جماله، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك قفيت بفضلك وسترت أن توفر حظي من كل خير تنزله، أو إحسان تفضله، أو بر تنشره، أو رزق تبسط، أو ذنب تغفر، أو خطأ تستر، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي مالك الرق يا من بيده ناصيتي عليما بضري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك وأسماعك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وعراضي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قوي على خدمتك جواره وأشدد على العظيمة جواره وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في اتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرع إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فرد ومن كادني فكد واجعلني من أحسان عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وقسهم زلفة لديك وإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك وعاطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لحجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأقلني عسرتي واغفر ضلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك أستجب لدعائي وبلغني منايا ولا تقطع من فضلك ورجائي واكفي شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من راسه ماله الرجاء وسلاه البقاء يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقام يا نور المستحشين في الظلام يا عالم لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا اللهم صل على
اللهم صل على
محمد
محمد.
وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. السلام عليكم شيخ.
Thank you very much. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الخطبة 28. ألا فاعملوا في الرغبة كما تعملون في الرهبة. ألا فاعملوا في الرغبة كما تعملون في الرهبة ألا وإني لم أرى كالجنة نام طالبها ولا كالنار نام هاربها ألا وإنه من لا ينفعه الحق يضره الباطل ومن لا يستقيم به الهدى يجر به الضلال إلى الردى. Continuing with this second half of khutbah number 28 of Nahjul Balagha, in which, as was said before, it's that khutbah, it's one of those special khutbahs really, and moving khutbahs, one of those that really shakes an individual, can be a life changer if a person really focuses on it and reads it every now and then just to keep things in check. I don't think it can get any better than this, really, in this khutbah, how the Imam speaks. And it's because of this that Sayyid al-Radi, as was explained in our last session, he says that if there could be an utterance which would drag by neck towards renunciation in this world and force to action for the next world, it is this sermon, right? He says that this sermon really can make a difference in a person's life. These words are not normal words. They drag you to renounce the dunya and to work for your akhirah. It is enough to cut off from the entanglements of hopes and to ignite the flames of preaching. And what is meant here by preaching, itti'adh, means to take heed, taking heed. So it can really push someone to take heed and to be warned against vice. So in this khutbah, as I said, there's about 10 points. I said last session, there's about 10 points, 5 of which were covered in our last one. And so we want to cover the rest of the khutbah, inshallah. Once again, very powerful words and very beautiful comparisons that the Imam draws and makes. He begins by, we shouldn't say he begins, he continues by saying, Ala fa'amalu fir raghbah kama ta'amaluna fir rahbah. So I'm going to start with an example, actually. You know, we've all been in that situation. Those of us who used to go to school are now working or graduated, or those of us who are in school right now as we speak. It's just a thing that most people, if not all people, experience. And that is that when it's time for exams, yeah, if it's time for final exams, for example, what we find is, and I can speak for myself um, more than anything in this regard because I've experienced it a lot in my day. What happens is as you get closer and closer to that deadline for that final exam, for that paper, for that dissertation that you have to turn in, it's like you just jump gears and you really like pick up steam and speed and productivity and efficiency, right? The night of the exam, you are studying in a way that you would never study before. And this happens all the time too. You're like, at least for myself, I'm like, man, if every night for me could be final exam night, you know, I would really be much better off in everything that I do. So this is a feeling that lots of us have felt, right? And the reason is because when the deadline comes closer, that means, yeah, that which we fear is getting closer. So it's like automatically, yeah, we shift into high gear. Our mind, our body, everything really changes and becomes much stronger and more efficient. Okay, so now why am I saying all of this? What triggers all of this is how that thing that which we fear gets closer and closer, right? That's what really gets us going. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in this part of the khutbah, he points to this same matter. He says, Allah. He says, I know how we all are. We're procrastinators, right? We leave things for the last minute, but I'm telling you now, فَأَمَلُوا فِي الرَّغْبَةِ كَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ فِي الرَّهْبَةِ. Right now, where everything's going the way you want, and everything is the way that you please, and These are times that we don't have hardship. Work and act and deliver in these times. So what happens? So that, or do it in such that as if the times of hardship you would do this. Now it doesn't say it's hardship, it says fir rahbah. Rahbah means fear. Yes? Rahbah means fear. In times of fear, how do you act? I mean, like for example, when someone gets scared, they're the most dangerous actually. If you attack someone who's really scared, they might fight back such that they would never ever be able to in normal circumstances to be able to fight. Yeah, a person who is really gets scared does crazy things, right? And does big things. And so here the Imam says, look, when you're in a state of fear, how do you act? What do you make sure you deliver, right? Work in these times of lack of fear, in these times of ease, the same way that you would act in times of fear and hardship. It just makes so much sense. We have verses of the Quran as well that speak about how when we reach a point of fear, that's when we're good. But then when we are relieved of that situation, we go back to our bad old ways. Okay? So for example, in Surah Ankabut, verse 65, it says, فَإِذَا رَكِبُوا فِي الْفُلْكِ دَعَوُا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ فَلَمَّا نَجَّاهُمْ إِلَى الْبَرِّ إِذَا هُمْ يُشْرِكُونَ. Which means that when the Quran speaks about people who, when they have things going good for them, and then all of a sudden the hardship befalls them, that's when they remember Allah. It says, when they ride in the ship, okay, when the people are in the ship, and of course they get in trouble, there's a storm or whatever, big waves, they feel like they're going to fall and drown, fall into the sea and drown. It says that's when they da'awullaha mukhlisina lahuddin. That's when they sincerely, yes, call unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so Allah saves them from that. In that moment of hardship and fear, it's not just hardship, it's fear. فَلَمَّا نَجَّاهُمْ إِلَى الْبَرِّ. But when Allah takes them to land and their lives are saved, إِذَا هُمْ يُشْرِكُونَ. Again, they make the same horrible mistakes that they were making before of shirk, going after other than Allah and other than Allah's satisfaction. And this is why our Imams would sometimes, according to the hadiths that we read, if someone would come to them and say, prove to me that God exists, the Imam would point out how he would ask them, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like there is no hope for you to survive? And they're like, yes. And I think the Imam would actually point out, the ship in the sea. And they would say, yeah, there was a time. And it says, what did you do then? In that moment, who did you call on? Or who did you have hope in? And the person would say, well, yeah, I had hope in something that's metaphysical, that's transcendent, that is all powerful and all of that. The Imam says that's the God we're talking about. So sometimes you have to push to the limit, yes, and a fear has to come into the heart so that we actually acknowledge that which is embedded within us. Yeah. So this verse is pointing that out. And to be honest, brothers and sisters, the reason for our fear, okay, should be, well, let me say it like this. The reason we should be the same in times of ease versus times of fear is the fact that Yawmul Qiyamah is coming. Okay, I want you to pay attention to the point I want to try to make here. For some, the criterion is ease versus fear. Okay, if they're in a time of ease, then they're good, no problem. They're not going to be working hard. But there are some who, and if they have times of fear, then that's when they're going to start, doing something and making a change and difference. Okay, this is for normal people, I would say. This is for normal people. Awliyaullah, or the ones who have a Quranic perspective in life, what do? For them, the criterion is not fear versus ease, hardship versus ease. What is the criterion? The criterion is Yawmul Qiyamah coming or not. All right? If Yawmul Qiyamah is coming, they're working hard for it. Okay? That's why their times of ease will be the same as their times of fear and hardship. Why? Because the criterion for them isn't ease or hardship. What is it? It's Yawmul Qiyamah coming. Right? If I am in times of ease, do I ask myself the question of, okay, am I in ease right now? Or do I ask myself the question, is Yawmul Qiyamah coming or not? If the answer is Yawmul Qiyamah is coming, then it doesn't matter if I have ease or not. Right? That which is supposed to get me off my back to work is there. The criterion is there, which is Yawmul Qiyamah. And so if the Imam here he says, فَأَعْمَلُوا فِي الرَّغْبَةِ كَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ فِي الرَّهْبَةِ, work, do amal, act in times of ease the same way you work in times of hardship or in the times of fear. That's the reason that the Imam is going to say that, is because the criterion in his eyes is the fact that Yawmul Qiyamah is coming. If Yawmul Qiyamah is coming, that's enough for fear, even if I'm living in times of ease. So the only way a person is going to take the times of ease the same as times of hardship is if they have the proper Quranic perspective. What is the Quranic perspective? And what is the criterion of the Quran? It is the fact that Yawm al-Qiyamah is coming. When that happens, you don't care if you're in ease or hardship. For you, or excuse me, fear. For you, it's all fear as if. Why? Because Yawm al-Qiyamah is coming. I think that's a very relevant and wonderful point. So that's one verse. فَإِذَا رَكِبُوا فِي الْفُلْكِ دَعَوُا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. Another verse, and this is like Quran kind of complaining about mankind. Yeah, and how mankind is, that in the times of ease, he lets go, but in the times of hardship, all of a sudden, he's working hard, right? That shows that the criterion of Yawm al-Qiyamah has not been secured in this person's mind and worldview. Another verse says, in Surah Isra, verse 67, وَإِذَا مَسَّكُمُ الضُّرُّ فِي الْبَحْرِ ضَلَّ مَنْ تَدْعُونَ إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. When harm afflicts you, in the sea, all of a sudden, all the ones that you were looking at to help you, all of those you were calling on as many gods as if, yeah, all of a sudden they're all gone. They're nowhere to be found. Yeah. In other words, you've cut off your hope from them, except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَلَمَّا نَجَّاكُمْ إِلَى الْبَرِّ. But then when Allah saves your lives and takes you to land, أَعْرَضْتُمْ, you turn away again. وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ كَفُورًا. And man is man ungrateful. You see what I did there with those words? And man is man ungrateful. Man is humankind ungrateful. The Imam goes on, أَلَا وَإِنِّي لَمْ أَرَى كَالْجَنَّةِ نَامَ طَالِبُهَا وَلَا كَالنَّارِ نَامَ هَارِبُهَا. Oh my God, I am in love with this line. That's all I'm going to say. And I don't know if I can even get it across why I love it so much. I'll just explain what I can of it. It's nothing super deep, but it really hits home. It really hits home. The Imam says, Allah, Allah, once again in Arabic is like, oh my God, like getting somebody's attention, or when you're trying to really show that you're really you're really emotionally invested in something, like, oh my God, wa inni, I have never seen the likes of Jannah whose seekers are asleep. And I have never seen the likes of the hellfire whose fleers are asleep. What's going on here? Inshallah, that translation gives us a good idea of what the Imam's trying to say here. But let me explain a little bit. He says, I can't believe it. there's a Jannah out there. There are people who seek this Jannah. In other words, they know that this is the goal, they want this. They are talib of it, they have talab of it, but they're asleep. I mean, if there's like a super awesome get together, if there's a super awesome like group of guys that I want to go hiking with early morning the next day, or personally, I grew up in a certain state where we would go fishing a lot. So back where I grew up when I was a kid, fishing, we loved fishing, and you would go fishing early in the morning. That person is not going to oversleep probably, even if they will set 10 alarms. But at the same time, even if they don't set an alarm, all in all, their sleep is going to be light. It's not going to be a heavy sleep. When there is something that you are talib of, you will not sleep on it. And so the Imam says, I have never seen the likes of Jannah whose seekers sleep on. Wow. That is horrible. That is horrible and totally unacceptable. If you're going to sleep on anything, sleep on it, but don't let that thing be Jannah, because that is the highest thing you're not supposed to sleep on and miss out on. But he says, I haven't seen anything like this. Like, how much worse can it get? That's what Imam Ali is saying here, alayhi salam. And on the flip side, وَلَا كَالنَّارِ نَامَ and at the likes of the hellfire, that if there's anything you're gonna flee from, it's gonna be it. I haven't seen this before. I can't believe it, he says. That is what people are not fleeing from. Wow. And instead they're sleeping on it. Wow. So what happens is, if someone tells you, forget the hike that we were talking about, you're gonna go hiking with your friends, forget that. If they tell you tomorrow at 6 a.m., okay, 5 a.m., 4:30 a.m., there is going to be a big explosion. We are experimenting something. There's going to be a big explosion in your vicinity. And if you're not careful, if you're not ready to run for your life, the flames of that explosion, that fire might just encompass and engulf your whole house. Okay? So you better be ready for it. So is anyone going to sleep the night before? I mean, it's a very it's a sorry example, but I think it gets the point across. Like, that is not something people are going to sleep on, right? Or are not going to be awake for. Forget sleeping. Anyway, if there's anything you are going to try to avoid and flee from, is Jahannam, is An-Nar, the hellfire. Amir al-Mu'minin here says, I haven't seen anything of the likes of Jahannam that people who want to flee from it are going to be sleeping from it. Like, so these people, they know there's an explosion the next day. The guy gets in bed and sleeps and has some sweet dreams. And before you know it, he's engulfed in flames, right? Imam Ali alayhi salam is in awe. He's shocked, right? It really kind of, for lack of better words, it blows his mind that how is it that people are going to sleep on things like this? Okay. If we have, in other words, sometimes you don't know. Sometimes they haven't told you there's going to be an explosion tomorrow. Sometimes they haven't told you, your friends haven't told you that we're going on this hike. We're going to have the best food at the top of that mountain or hill or whatever that we're going, or that we're hiking up. They haven't told you anything of the good stuff that's going to be coming up. Okay, so in that case, if this person sleeps and sleeps through it and oversleeps, then they don't even know. We're not going to blame them. But look, if they know what's going on and what it's all about, then it's very surprising if they miss out on it. Okay, so now here it says that the Quran has described to us, brothers and sisters, it has described to us both Jannah and Jahannam. It's not like we don't know about them, so that we don't want to flee from Jahannam, or we're not interested in Jannah. No, like, this probably stems from if someone still has heard the descriptions of those two and is still relaxed and not making an effort to avoid Jahannam and to reach Jannah, then that shows that they have a weak iman in these descriptions. They need to start reciting Quran more and reflecting more. This is why it's super important for us, for our youth, to teach each other the Quran. Go through these verses. The Imams, that's what they would do. That's what they were all about. They knew these verses in and out. Just a few verses that I can share with you that off the top of my mind that I jotted down of the descriptions, and not the detail of the descriptions, just of how great and significant each of these are, Jannah and Jahannam, both of them. One of them in a positive way, of course, is significant positively, and one of them very significant in a negative way. For example, if we talk about Jannah, it says, Surah Mutaffifin, verses 22 to 28, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الأبرار لفي نعيم على الأرائك ينظرون تعرف في وجوههم نظرة النعيم يسقون من رحيق مختوم ختامه مسك وفي ذلك فليتنافس المتنافسون ومزاجه من تسنيم عينا يشرب بها المقربون. Like, come on, people, how are you going to miss out on this? How are you going to sleep on this? Verily, the righteous are living in blessings. Reclined on the beds, yeah, looking onwards, of course, looking onto whatever good is out there and the blessings that are coming their way. So they're relaxing, they're chilling, but not like here where after an hour or two your back gets tired, after an hour or two of eating whatever, you got to go to the bathroom. None of that stuff. Whether you're having those chips that you like, the salt with the salsa, whether it's the nachos you like, whether it's the pizza, whether it's the wings, whatever it is, but then you have to worry about the calories, you have to worry about the fat, the carbs, all that kind of stuff. And then you know that this is all like gonna hurt you in the long run. It's not good for your health. It's not, no. Put that stuff aside. When you're hanging out with your friends at night, you're like, man, this is gonna end, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I gotta go home probably. I'm gonna probably miss Fajr to all these worries. No, none of that there. على الأرائك ينظرون. They're relaxing, looking on. تعرف في وجوههم نظرة النعيم. I like this part. You see in their faces the traces and signs of blessings. All right, this is important. Sometimes I look at somebody and let's say, they're very overweight, and you can tell that this guy, he'd be having a good life, eating whatever they like and so on. And so usually people who are not well off, usually people who are struggling financially, they won't be too overweight because, well, I mean, in this day and age and the food industry and the fast food industry, I don't know, maybe that's what I'm saying isn't accurate. Even the cheapest food can be found that can still like really, really make you unhealthy. But all in all, what I'm trying to say is this. The verse didn't say that you see the signs of blessings in their bodies necessarily, right? Like you can see them here in this life. If someone's like really, like in the past, if you were kind of chubby, it was seen as a good thing from what I've heard. In the past, like maybe 100 years ago, 50 years ago, even some cultures today, if you're too skinny, they're not going to like it. In some cultures, it's like that. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. It doesn't say you see the signs in their bodies. No, you see it in their faces, it says. Right? Some people, their skin is so good, their faces are glowing. You can tell they're healthy by their faces. You just look at them, you tell. There's like this, like as if light coming from their faces. Not a spiritual light necessarily, but in the akhirah, you can even say it's a spiritual light that's emanating from their faces. All in all, you look at their faces, you can tell that blessing upon blessing is reaching them. يُسْقَوْنَ مِنْ رَحِيقٍ مَخْتُومٍ. It starts talking about, the drinks that they have and all of that. This is the important part. وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. Something that's nafis is something that is very valuable. Okay? And so it says this is where the treasure seekers should be seeking their treasures. Like mind blown here, okay? The Quran describes Jannah, describes the blessings therein, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, we have to understand, in the end, the Quran won't be able to describe it because we don't have words to describe it. So lots of times you'll find that the Quran will top things off with that cherry of وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. Yes, things like that, where we won't really understand what's going on, but we get there, okay, there is something going on that is just undescribable. Here it says, look, وَفِي ذَلِكَ, that's where you should seek your treasures, O treasure seekers, As kids growing up, we always liked those little pirate maps, treasure maps, and to find that treasure chest, with that big X and the map on it. Anyway, something like that. It's like that's where you have to go seek your treasure. The Quran is saying, وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. This is where they should seek their treasures. That means don't waste your time anywhere else. These are verses for Jannah. Okay? Or for example, Surah Al-Imran, verse 133. وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That speed towards and rush towards a forgiveness and maghfirah from your Lord, and a Jannah, a garden or paradise whose width is the heavens and earth. That's how great it is. And then here people are fighting over 2 acres, 4 acres, 10 acres, this country and that country. No. This Jannah, yes, its width spans over the heavens and earth. But who is it for? Who has it been prepared for? Who does it belong to? أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It has been prepared for the muttaqeen, those who act according to God's satisfaction. They take God's satisfaction / wrath into consideration when they act. Before they do anything, a split second, subconsciously, they're asking themselves, is this something that Allah is not happy with or is happy with? If He's happy with it, fine. If He's okay with it, fine, I'll do it. But if He's not okay with it, I ain't doing it. I'm sorry. أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the Jannah we're talking about here. That's how wide it has to be to encompass all the blessings of Allah in it. This is something to think about, brothers and sisters. It's something to think about. The wonders. What is going on there? What creatures are there? What angels are there? And then I have all the power. I have all the authority and dominion. It all belongs to me. Anyway, that's Jannah. That's just in a nutshell Jannah. All right. I skipped descriptions of some of the blessings of Jannah. This is just explaining how great Jannah it is in its entirety. All right. And then a couple of verses of Jahannam. We have verses that talk about details. I'm not going to get into those. Let's just speak in general here. 2 verses that, off the top of my mind, I said. Surah Sajda, verse 20. كُلَّمَا أَرَادُوا أَن يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا أُعِيدُوا فِيهَا وَقِيلَ لَهُمْ ذُوقُوا عَذَابَ النَّارِ الَّذِي كُنْتُمْ بِهِ تُكَذِّبُونَ. It says that every time these people who are in Jahannam try and will to get out of it and exit it, أُعِيدُوا فِيهَا, they are returned into it. And what is said to them? As they're returned into Jahannam, this is part of the punishment, when you rub things in, when you add insult to injury. ذُوقُوا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. This is said to them as well, that taste it. Yes? Take it all in. Feel it. Feel what? The punishment of the hellfire that you were denying. Yeah, how does this taste? So I didn't get into details. This verse didn't get into details here. All in all, it's saying that this is something that people want to flee from. And I think, brothers and sisters, that's part of the punishment. The fact that they will it and they think maybe I can get out, and maybe they try to get out, and a little bit of hope comes into their hearts, but then they're returned into it with this insult that's added to injury, okay? That itself, I think, and the breaking of their hearts is part of the punishment. That's very scary. You know, you always feel like the fact that there is something that you're trying to avoid or you're trying to escape from or get out of, and a little bit of hope comes in your heart that maybe I can get out of it, but then 100 times worse, you feel like, oh my God, I can't. That's what happens to these people. It's horrible. And of course, this is the result of their own doings. Rather, this is their own doing. It's not even can't even say it's the result of their own doing. It is their own doing. According to verses of the Quran, we are reaping whatever we've sown here in this dunya, in this life, in this world of this life, the life of this world, excuse me. So that's what it is. That's how horrible it is. Or the other verse that I have here, Zukhruf 77. وَنَادَوْا يَا مَالِكْ لِيَقْضِ عَلَيْنَا رَبُّكَ. That these people, when they are in Jahannam, they will call out and say, O Malik, which is the name of the angel. They say, according to hadiths of Shia and Ahlus Sunnah, both we have, that the name of that main angel that is taking care of and is in charge of and watching over Jahannam, his name is Malik. So the verse here says, وَنَادَوْا. They call out, Ya Malik, O Malik, O angel that is in charge of Jahannam, لِيَقْضِ عَلَيْنَا رَبُّكَ. Like, can your Lord, like, just take our lives, finish us off, so that we just don't exist anymore, so we don't go through all this hardship. You know, even in this life, when you listen to people who have had very painful and have been through very painful experiences of torture or of anything else, they'll say that, you know, we were begging God to take our life. We were begging the ones who were inflicting pain on us to just finish us off. That's how much pain we were in. Here it says that they reach a point where they're saying to the angel Malik of Jahannam, tell your Lord, just take our life, finish us off. But no, that's not how it works, brothers and sisters. We were created for eternity. We are created for eternity, brothers and sisters. There is no death after leaving this dunya. There is no non-existence for us in the future. No, none of that. So it's either here or there we're going to be in. These are verses that really, you know, send chills down one's spine. One who has a listening ear, yeah, and ponders over these things. These are not fables and storytelling. This is reality. It's coming, brothers and sisters. And so let's go back to Amir al-Mu'mineen, what he says, and why he's saying it now. We just got a little taste of 3 or 4 verses. He says, "Ala wa inni lam araka al-jannati nama talibuha." I can't believe there are people who are sleeping, people seekers of Jannah who are asleep, who should be working towards Jannatin arduha as-samawat wal ard, or working towards وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. This is where the treasure is. This is, if you're a treasure seeker, right? This is where you should be seeking your treasure. Because how can someone be sleeping on this? Or وَلَا كَالنَّارِ نَامَ هَارِبُهَا. He says, I've never seen the likes of Jahannam, whose fleer will be asleep in regards to. That same Jahannam that كُلَّمَا أَرَادُوا أَن يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا أُعِيدُوا فِيهَا. They want to run out, but they're put back in there. Ya Malik, لِيَقْضِ عَلَيْنَا رَبُّكَ. Malik, tell your Lord to finish us off. And you know, it's interesting, we have other verses that talk about how Allah in the Quran, He says that on the Day of Judgment, these people who are in Jahannam, I am not going to speak to them. They're not going to hear me. وَلَا يُكَلِّمُهُمْ. Allah doesn't speak to them. قَالَ اخْسَأُوا فِيهَا وَلَا تُكَلِّمُونَ. Shut your mouths. Don't talk to me. You don't even have access to me. That is one of the greatest punishments, actually, they say in Jahannam, is the fact that you cannot have access to Allah. The only one who you could have hope in. Right? Think about it. There's 1 million people that are watching you suffer, okay, and are in charge of making sure that you suffer. And there's one person amongst these million people that you know that person would be the person that would help you. That's, let's say, for example, your mother. The problem is that your mother, right? She's amongst them, but she can't hear you calling you. She doesn't even know that's you in there, for example. This is just an example that I'm just, sharing off the top of my head. You know, if she was to hear you or listen to you, she would get you out of that situation. She is one person that would have mercy towards you, but you just don't have access to her. She's in another room. She's somewhere else, for example. I don't know. These people, they know on the day of judgment, in Yawm al-Qiyamah, or in the hereafter, in Jahannam, if there is one person, it's going to be Allah, but they don't have access to him. قَالَ اخْسَأُوا فِيهَا وَلَا تُكَلِّمُونَ اخْسَأُوا فِيهَا. Yeah, it's derogatory. It's a term that's used for quieting dogs. That's what it is. But this is their barzakhi self in Yawm al-Qiyamah. They are that. And so that term will be used for them. This is their own their own actions of this life manifesting there. Okay. So Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, he is like, I can't believe people are going to be asleep that are trying to flee from Jahannam. Okay. Now, having said all of that and explaining this, these verses and trying to really, Amir al-Mu'minin trying to wake us up a little bit, that there's two reasons to get up off of our backs and work towards Allah's satisfaction. I just want to mention one thing, but we'll talk about this more later as well. Someone might say, but how much more can I do? These verses or these hadiths or these khutbahs of Nahjul Balagha, if a person is doing what they're supposed to be doing of observing the wajib and haram of Allah, then these verses and khutbahs won't be applicable to them, because this person is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah, someone might want to shoot for the stars a little bit more and do more good in their life. Yeah, these will be applicable, right? But this is for those people who are lazy and just have a messy, sloppy religious life, half practicing, half not practicing, and so on and so forth. They'll say one night is not 1,000 nights. This haram happens, that haram, okay, it's fine, God will forgive. Yes, God will forgive, but that's not the mindset that I can have. I don't want to be seen as someone who's sleeping, while I'm supposed to be fleeing Jahannam, or I'm supposed to be seeking Jannah. Having explained all of that, now I want to read the translation, okay, in the famous translation that we have for Nahjul Balagha. I want to read to you the translation, at least that I have of it, just to show that sometimes the translation doesn't do justice, right? This line, and then I'm going to end after that. This line here, it says, in the English, it says, beware. Surely I have not seen a coveter for paradise asleep, nor a dreader from hell to be asleep. That's the translation that we have here. I personally feel it kills the message that Amir al-Mu'minin is trying to get across here. You know what this sounds like, this English translation here? It sounds like it's saying that if you are a seeker of Jannah, I'm not gonna ever find you asleep. Right? If you're interested in Jannah, then you're not gonna be asleep. And if you're a person who dreads Jahannam, you're not gonna ever be asleep. Right? It kind of implies that if you're a seeker, then you're not going to be asleep. And if you're a dreader, you're not going to be asleep. While we know at the end of the day, lots of people out there dread Jahannam. They really do. Yet they're still asleep. They still are lazy. They procrastinate. They have too much hope in God's forgiveness. They're like, oh yeah, God will forgive this and that. They have that, false hope that Allah has told us, or the Ahlul Bayt have told us to beware of. Too much hope when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or at least trying, can be dangerous. But that's what it implies. That if you dread it, you won't be asleep. No, there are a lot of people who dread Jahannam, but they're still asleep. Or there are a lot of people who seek, they are a talib of Jannah. They are a seeker of Jannah. They would love to have Jannah. But we find that they're asleep as well. Yeah. So both can be asleep. And this just reminds us of the hadith that says, "An-nasu niyamun فَإِذَا مَاتُوا انْتَبَهُوا." People are asleep. Brothers and sisters, let's not be those who are asleep. Let's not be. Who, when they die, the hadith says, is when they wake up actually. This is like awesome. This hadith is one of those wonderful hadiths. Most of you, if not all of you, have already heard this hadith. Right? When you're awake, it says you're asleep, and when you're alive, you're asleep. But then when you die, you're awake. But I thought when we're dead, we're not asleep. We're not awake anymore. We're asleep. And how does that work? So many contradictions in this hadith. No, 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 no. What it's saying is obviously is that that reality hits us when we leave this dunya. We sleep on the akhirah. We sleep on it. And when it comes, we're like, oh my God, I missed out. Yeah, and it'll be too late. And we're awake then, but that wakefulness does us no good. So the point I'm trying to make here in the end is that this English translation might imply something other than what I feel Amir al-Mu'mineen was trying to get across here. Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying, I can't believe, I haven't seen a worse case than this, that a person who seeks Jannah is asleep. I have not seen the likes of something like Jannah that people sleep on, and the likes of Jahannam that fleers might sleep on. Right? Wake up, people. That's what he's saying. While the English translation is kind of implying that, yeah, if you dread Jahannam, you're not going to be sleeping. And if you are seeking Jannah, you're not going to be sleeping. I'm not saying it's a false notion, but at the same time, I think a more accurate translation would be otherwise. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be of those who wake up upon death and are really asleep in this life that Amir al-Mu'mineen is speaking about in this khutbah. We still have a few more points in regards to this khutbah, this wonderful khutbah that I think it's not bad to read every now and then. Yes, khutbah number 28 is a khutbah to be read once every 2-3 weeks, maybe once every month, just to remind ourselves of what is to come and how Amir al-Mu'mineen is shaking us to wake us up from that slumber sometimes the likes of me we will be in. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And my salams to everyone here in the chat box as well. Brother Khurshid, Brother Farid, Sister Zainab, Sister Asiya, and Ali Rizvi. Brother Khurram says that please pray for him and his family as they are all inflicted with COVID-19. All the best, brother. Inshallah, you get better, you and your family. You are in our du'as. And let's recite 5 times Amman Yajib for them as well, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you and your family health and that you're cured from this and all of those who are suffering from this illness, and that Allah rids the people of the world from this hardship and all the other ailments that they are suffering from, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.